Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Baruchim Habayim, both those that are joining live, in person or on the phone. So, B'ezrat Hashem, we said we're going to try from today, maybe a weekly shiur on the importance. First, maybe talk a little about the importance and background of reading correctly, the Alef Bet, Dikduk, vowels, Havara, pronunciation, a lot of the rules of reading, and of course, B'ezrat Hashem, getting into reading Torah, and also really being khazan, because there's a lot of rules to be khazan. It's connected, obviously, you have to read it correctly, and also certain things that I think many chazanim perhaps either are not aware of or not careful with. Okay, so I'm starting a little off using a sefer called Em Lamikra V'Lamesoret, as the Rav was saying, that written by Rav in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rav Nisan Sharoni. So he says he's Persian. So he this is actually, I think, like at least third or fourth Ma'adura, as it's called. I think the first time it was a much smaller sefer, and every time he came out with. So in the beginning of the sefer, he goes a little into the importance and knowledge. Maybe before even this, we know, I'm sure we've heard that the first pasuk in the Torah says what? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim. So what's the first thing Hashem created? Et. He created et. This is a hint, maybe. I don't know if it's literal. What's et? Huh? Et is Aleph and Tav. So what's the first thing Hashem created? Aleph and Tav, meaning the letters from Aleph to Tav. What does that mean? So let's go a little into, I don't know, call it Kabbalah, but background. We know that we've mentioned before, probably a few times already, that Hashem created, the Rabbi says, Hashem created the world for one purpose, to share His infinite good with us. Because since He's good, He wanted to share His good with others. So He created us to share His good. Now, Hashem is known by the Netzim Mikubalim as Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite light, infinite good, infinite pleasure, happiness, etc. And so, says that Rav Ashlag, since Hashem is everything and is the source of all good, so what is there for Him to create? If He's everything, what is there for Him to create? What does he need to create that He doesn't already, that's not already there? The only thing He can create and did create is the Ratzon Lekabel, meaning a ability or a will or desire to receive. Hashem doesn't have an ability or will to receive. He doesn't even have to receive because He's everything. So in other words, another way to say this is that He created kelim, He created vessels. He is the Or, Hashem is the Or, call Him the Or, the light, the goodness, the shefa, the bracha. Everything we want comes from Hashem. And we, and everything Hashem created, are the vessels, potential vessels to receive from Hashem's good, right? Now, everything has a start. Everything has a foundation. When you build a building, you have the raw materials that you use to make the building. So what was Hashem's raw materials to create everything? All the kelim. That's the otiot. The letters. The letters are the vessels which Hashem started and used to create everything. So let's look at the letters. Look at a Sefer Torah. How many letters do we have? 22 plus the 5 sofit, so you can maybe say 27, right? There's 22, and this is not counting like bet and vet as a separate letter. That's counting as one. So the 6 that, bet, vet, gimel, those are 1. So it's 22 plus the 5 sofits, mem sofit, etc., 27. So let's look at the letter. What do we see what's the first thing we see about a letter? First of all, we see that every letter has a shape. So the shape of every letter means something. That means the shape already defines the nature of that vessel, the ot. That's one thing every letter has. That's unique. The other thing is its name, Alef, Bet, Gimel. Right? There's a reason why it has a name. And the third thing is, I guess you could say, its order. Why Aleph is the first and Bet. So in other words, or you could say the numerical value or the order, right? The point is that each letter has at least those three aspects: a shape, a name, and its numerical value. So each ot has a certain, let's call it energy or techuna or nature, which by combining different letters and different energies, you produce different things. So for that, just a simple example. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, Hashem said, let it be light, vahi or. Well, interesting. Or, light, is made up of three letters, Aleph, Vav, Resh, which means that the DNA, the makeup of light, is these three letters. These three letters, that means the energy, what Aleph represents, what Vav represents, what Resh represents, when it's combined, it produces light. And those that know how to combine it, I guess using, certain kavanot, technically human beings can create. There were tzaddikim, from even the Gemara says, based on certain holy books like Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is one of the oldest sefarim that a lot of this is based on. This is from Avram Avinu, right? So it says Amoraim would create on Friday a calf or something to eat on Shabbat, etc. Obviously, you have to be on a certain level to do it. Today, I don't think anyone is on that level. But you see, even humans, if they know how to combine letters or however it works, you can create. And it says in the Gemara that Betzalel, who made the Mishkan, had this ability to know how to combine letters, etc. So basically, we don't always realize that the most powerful or basic thing in the world is the letters that we see and read every day. We don't necessarily, we don't realize maybe the power. Say, Ba, yeah, Aleph, very nice, Baruch. Sometimes I think because we don't understand the power, it causes us to not appreciate the tefillah or the Torah that we learn. So we have to realize that when we are saying the Aleph Bet, we're saying the letters, the words, we are saying words and letters that are the source of creation. Now, obviously, like we just said, the more kavana you put into it, the more knowledge we have and accuracy we have in saying the letters and words, it has more power, right? Which is hopefully what we're going to, B'ezrat Hashem, learn together. But I just want to get an appreciation. We can even discuss a little examples, like just for example, Aleph, the first letter. So it's maybe you've heard this before. Aleph represents Alufo Shel Olam. It represents Hashem. It's the first letter. Hashem's name Elokim or Adonut starts with an Aleph. So you can just start by saying Aleph represents the first and the leader. Again, it represents as Hashem, but also any word that has Aleph. Especially, they say that the first letter of every word, it's the beginning of the energy of that word. So any word that starts with an Aleph, or any name, this has to do with your name also. If your name starts with an Aleph, any name that starts with Aleph already is connected. That means, look at anyone that name starts with an Aleph. It could be Avraham, it could be Avishai, it could be Ariel. They share already something in common. They have a certain common because the first letter already is it's like the beginning. So they all start the same way. Now they shift because every letter will. So that's like Abraham and Avishai or Aaron, and they're not going to be the same, but they already be right. So like if your name starts with the Yud, Yitzchak, Yaakov, also is going to be similar. So I'm just saying, Aleph, we said represents Hashem, represents like spirituality, represents independence, the leader. So someone whose name starts with Aleph usually has those qualities. They're more of the leader. They're more of the, I guess you can almost say the bigger thinker, out of the box thinker, spiritual. Okay. Now it sounds very good, but of course everything always has its challenges. So the leader has to make sure he doesn't, I guess, go into like haughtiness, whatever it is. The point is each letter has an energy, has a nature, and that's already itself a good thing to learn. This is not our purpose to go through them to that point. Maybe, but that it's a very amazing, beautiful, powerful, deep room of learning, which, like I said, you can know the nature of anything, any person, if you learn to a certain degree when you learn the nature of the letters. And there are different books on it. In fact, one of my friends was saying, Yuda, that they have like once a week, they have like a Rav in Lakewood that gives Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday nights. Rabbi who? Appel, yeah. That recently they've been learning every week on Zoom, I think, about the letters. So, okay, that's maybe, I guess we can maybe advertise that. But, okay, so now. So, we know the Nefesh Chaim, many talk about how when it says in the Torah, Hashem created humans, B'Tselem Elokim. What does that mean? Hashem created us in His image, so to speak. It means that the things we see about Hashem in the Torah, we have a connection to. Let's put it that way. So if Hashem created with saying, with speaking, that means when we speak, we have the power to create, or the opposite. And I'm just bringing out, therefore, that's why our words and our tefillah is so powerful. We can create, maybe not what we think of creating as literally in front of us, but every time we speak, we definitely affect the worlds above, and we create or destroy. And we were yesterday talking about, and this morning also was learning with someone that we learned yesterday in the Parsha about the chet of the Meraglim, which was basically Lashon Hara. So from there you see how destructive the wrong language and wrong speaking can be. And that today, until today, we're still suffering in Galut because of that. So basically, like we know, everyone quotes that most of our life has to do with our mouth, either speaking or eating, or something to do with that. And so now we're going to focus more on the speaking. But again, it's more on the otiyot. So again, this sefer starts with the otiyot, the letters, and then again it goes little by little, the vowels, etc. Okay, so again, the introduction here is it quotes different Sfarim and Rishonim about the importance of being careful to learn this. Don't just think, okay, what's the big deal? Hashem knows what I'm saying. Of course Hashem knows what you're saying. But it's like anything. Hashem knows that I want to keep Shabbat. Yeah, I know. But you can't just say, okay, I want to keep Shabbat, and then not keep Shabbat, or like not care or not learn about it. Because, like we're saying, that every letter is so thing. So like everything in life, the more time and energy you put to it, the more power it has. I want to add, though, you know what the source and essence of Avodah Zarah is? Maybe I'm gonna mute someone here. Okay, sorry. What's the source of Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah is when you take the vessels that Hashem created. Because remember, everything is what? To connect to Hashem, right? What's an example? Hashem gave us the need to eat, the desire to eat. That hopefully through eating we connect to Hashem by making a bracha, etc., right? But when you take Hashem out of the picture, chas shalom, and you just focus on the pleasure of eating, so it's like you're instead of worshiping Hashem, you're worshiping the food, so to speak, the pleasure of the thing. And I'm saying that's the source of all Avodah Zarah. When you focus and you worship the vessel instead of the source of the which is Hashem. So why am I bringing this? Because it's the same thing with davening, and some people might take this learning, perhaps, like I guess you want to use OCD, whatever, potentially that they might become so concerned with saying the words properly that they'll forget what they're doing and that they're praying to Hashem and they're just focusing on saying. There is a certain I used to have that tendency that you can get too involved, but that's what I'm trying to say is that don't forget that the Gemara says that tefillah is the avodah shebalev, it's in the heart. That means ultimately it's probably more important, I have to say, probably more important to make sure your kavana is there, and you're trying to connect to Hashem, you're trying to pray to Hashem, you're trying to build a relationship with Hashem. So the emotions is a very big part of love Hashem, etc. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's like what's it called, a disclaimer or a hakadama, that like everything in life, we have to make sure that hopefully we have the right balance. Okay, so I think that was maybe a good introduction to a certain degree. the Rav himself here was talking about how different Rabbanim were makpid, even some Ashkenazim, like the Rav of the Khatam Sofer. He himself, even though he's Ashkenazi, he decided that the Sephardi Havara was more correct, so he decided to learn it from a Sephardi Rav. But maybe we'll get into that, the background of Ashkenazi, Sephardi. Not that I'm an expert in all this, but he does talk about, I think, here a little, and some of it we can understand from basic history. But yeah, he brings here I think there's a very interesting, almost extreme quote here somewhere, if I see it, that someone once, I don't know, this is going to be careful, I guess, but I think someone asked Eliyahu Hanavi once, why isn't Mashiach here? And he says, well, people are not careful how to daven properly, and it sounds like meaning to say the words properly. I want to actually quote meaning we're praying, but maybe we're not careful enough. I think there's a midrash. This is a midrash, so it's not like right, that says that if a person is not careful with what he says, sometimes chas shalom, he can mamash, instead of saying, he can mamash turn what he's saying to the opposite. That's from something positive, like we're going to get to examples, like hallelujah means to praise. If you say it as a het, hallelujah chas shalom is from the word the profane. So sometimes, oh yeah, maybe that's better right there. So sometimes, what do you call it? You see from the midrash itself that the importance. But I want to add one thing, to make it like not as if like, oh my gosh, so what happens if I mess up? There is another midrash that says the following, which is very interesting. It says in the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, "V'diglo alay ahava," diglo, simply diglom degel means I guess a flag, but it says don't read as diglo ela dilugo. Dilugo means to skip. Okay, so says the midrash. So skip dilugo alay ahava. Hashem says, for me, I love this skipping. What does that mean? It says if a person, when saying Shema, instead of saying v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, love Hashem, he accidentally, right? Yeah, he says v'ayavta, which is be an enemy, chas v'shalom, the opposite of avta. Instead of loving Hashem, be an enemy, hate chas v'shalom. Hashem says, I love it. What do you mean I love it? Meaning, Hashem sees our kavanah. Obviously, that's what I'm trying to say, is that ultimately the ikar is the kavanah. That's right. So Hashem says, I love it. My children are I guess they're trying to say it, etc. Right. So that it helps it to that, because sometimes maybe we're going to see so much and we're like, oh my gosh, like make us scared almost. We can't daven, like too much things here. So again, Hashem knows obviously that's why it's good before we start to try to at least think a little that, like I said, we're trying to pray to Hashem and connect Him. Okay, I know it's all more and more introductions here, but I'm just trying to get out some of the things here. He brings, like I said, from Eliyahu Hanavi. There's stories brought down that there was a big tzaddik that passed away, and he came to someone's dream, and he said that, listen, even though I did all the mitzvot, but because I was not careful how to read the words, I had to pay for that. Okay, again, we shouldn't freak out, but we should just realize that it's important. And like I said from the midrash, and we're going to see examples that sometimes from even a small change of how to say something, you'll either change the meaning slightly or maybe completely the opposite. Okay, fine. So now let's just maybe start, and we won't really go too much because today was just more of a thing, and maybe hopefully next week we'll go more into it. And now that it's being recorded, maybe if people listen to it, there'll be a more of a attendance, etc. But for me, even one person is important. Because today was very short notice. Okay, so let's start with the Sefer Yetzirah anyway. The Sefer Yetzirah says that the 22 letters are split up into 5 sections. If you think about it, what's a letter? Why did Hashem create letters? We said those are the building blocks, but practically now speaking for pronunciation. Each letter, think about it, by definition, is a different way of producing a sound, right? But just try to pronounce the sound, any sound you can make. But every sound you can make is basically a letter. Now you're going to say, well, I have some sounds like j, which I don't see as a letter, but Teimanim seem to have it. Or like, they have, I don't know, there's some letters in the alphabet in English like X. Again, that's a combination of ka and sa. Or let's say cha, that you have in English, cha. I don't see that. So, I don't know, maybe we could think of why. But Be'etzem says from the Sefer Yetzirah that the letters are split up into 5 sections. And maybe, Hashem, next time we'll have a board and maybe show it. But just 5 sections on the source of the sound, which means there's 5 different parts of our mouth how to produce a sound. So, for example, the first section is called groniot, from the, throat. So there are 4 letters that come from the throat. What are the 4 letters? Aleph, Hey, Het, and Ayin. Now, already we're going to see that Ashkenazim say not Het, but Chet. And they don't say Ayin necessarily, they just say Ayin, like an Aleph. Now, I think this is already a good source and a proof that, besides the fact that logically, why would there be 2 letters of the same sound? Aleph, Ayin, that's already, I think, a proof that must be Ayin is different, but we can already bring the Gemara. It was quoted. The Gemara itself says that those that don't differentiate between Aleph and Ayin should not be a Shalech Tzibur. The Gemara says this. So they say, so the what, Ashkenazim, all those that don't, even the last Sephardim, so what do they do? So it says in the poskim, or maybe in the Gemara, it's mashma, that if there's no one else, that if that's everyone does it, so fine, that's everyone doing it. But you already see in the Gemara that there's a difference Aleph and Ayin, and we said also just from logic, and from here you see that these 4 letters, again, the Het also, you see that what they call Chet, many people call read as Chet, which is the 8th letter, like from the word choshech. It's not Chet, it's Het. Why? Because it's from the throat. Chet, we're going to see, is part of another group that comes from the palate. I think it's called the palate over here, up more higher. But anyways, the Aleph, and it goes in order, from higher up in the throat to lower. A, Ha, Ha, which is a stronger Hey, and then A is all the way on the thing. So Ayin, for those that know how to pronounce, is a deep Aleph coming from the bottom. Again, these things take practice. I know one of the reasons we're learning is to maybe people to start knowing how to pronounce, and then and even though you're going to say, well, I'm my whole life doing this way, that first of all, does that mean I'm doing it wrong the whole time? No, I'm not trying to say that I'm not. Let me explain. That doesn't mean that till now you weren't yotze, that your tefillah wasn't accepted, that again, you see so many people. But again, we're seeing if we can improve, everything can improve. And you might say, well, how am I going to start? And now you want to start my Shemoneh Esrei, beginning with an hour. No. So the way you do it is you take maybe 1 letter at a time, if you want. I'm not even saying necessarily you have to, because I want to go back. I'm going to say this a few times. If you feel by doing these, it's going to mess up your tefillah, and you won't have any kavanah, you're going to just think. So I'm telling you personally not to do it. You can rely on the minhagim not to do it. And again, we're going to learn maybe what's the minhagim. So if I have a minhag to do something, I could just, because we see by definition that when it comes to sounds and music and pronunciation, there's always like a kind of room for I guess, I don't know, call it error, but like music has its, it's not like it's so rigid. So there's obviously a reason, everything has a reason. Hashem wanted it this way, that there's a Mesorah like that. So especially if you're Ashkenazi and you want to go, I'm not telling you to change. But the point is that at least it's good to learn for those that want and know. So officially, the Het comes from lower, so Aleph, Hey, Het, and Ayin. I think Ayin might even be easier than Het, because Het is a little stronger on the thing. But anyway, the point is, like I'm trying to say, is that if you want to try, you don't have to even completely change. Try maybe let's say one bracha, one Shema, with like just one of these letters, like Shema. If you say Shema, so try to say Shema a little lower, that's more accurate, okay? And even the Gemara Brachot talks about the importance of saying the words of Shema. Shema is one of the few things we have that's from the Torah, the obligation from the Torah to say. So that's a good place to start, even if you can't change everything. We know that in Judaism it's not all or nothing. So maybe start with Shema. So the first pasuk, they bring down that even some Ashkenazi Gedolim, especially the ones from Brisk, by Shema, even Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, I heard this Talmud of the Gra, because it's Doraita, they would maybe after davening say it with like the more Sephardi way, just to make sure they're Yotze. So, and I've heard and know that there are Ashkenazim that do this, that do ayin. So it's not like it's only a Sephardi thing. Again, we prove that from the Gemara that it's obviously there's a difference. Okay, just maybe quickly the rest, and I don't want to go too much, and then we'll yeah. Then the next is chech, I think the palette, which are the four letters are, and maybe next time we'll have maybe sheets or something. Let's see. But gimel, or we're going to see without a dot, is rimel. You have to work on that. Rimel is like the Israeli resh, like tia bari. It's like the French way of saying that. Anyway, so gimel, and then we'll get to that. There's 6 letters that change depending on the dot. But anyways, gimel, yud, and yud, it's hard to see that, but it comes from a ya. So it's here, ya, ga, ya, then kaf or chaf, also from here, ka, cha, and then kuf. Again, this is one of the letters that Ashkenazi says kuf, but we are supposed to officially say kuf, which is a little lower. Again, you're going to say, I feel it's the same place, but I think the first 4, like aleph, hey, were without so much of it was just more air also. Ah, ha, ha, ah. And this is a little more like with the meat here. So it's ga, ya, but again, it's called chech in Hebrew. I think it's the palate in English. Ga, ya, cha, and qa. Qa, I think the easiest way to explain how to do it, at least the way to pronounce it, is like the way you gulp. So that's, I think, that's how you do it. Okay, and then we're going to see the kaf, chaf, depends on if there's a dagesh. Then we have from the lips, 4 letters from the lips, bet or vet, because you see ba from the lips, ba, va, and then vav. Oh, here we go. So what's vav? This is not the same as ve, vet, and vav. So I'm sure you heard that officially, according to many, the real way to say vav is like a W, wa, wow. It's also the lips. Now, I personally, you might ask why I don't do wa. I once tried to see, but a few reasons why I don't do it is, first of all, especially when I read in public, it's going to sound a little weird, and I think sometimes you have to make sure you don't want to create this you want to make sure that there's a certain level of honor and respect, and it's not, maybe it doesn't become like too funny in people's eyes. You have to. That's why you have to. I would say you have a balance. If you want to do it to yourself, and sometimes you'll do more subtly, you can't tell so easily one va, but officially they say it's really a wa sound, w, wa, wow, the vav. But the minhag, I think here probably most, even Sephardim, is vav. And I think I even heard of David Yosef, Rabbi Ovadiah's son, that says that it's not from the Zohar that it's vav. That's already an interesting point. So you have bet or vet, vav or wa. Then you have mem and pe or fe. These are all from the lips. It's called sifatayim. Ba, okay? And then you have the teeth. So you could already probably guess. Zayin, z. Again, it's also using the tongue a little, I think, but you need the teeth as well. So it's like they group into that way. Za. Then you have samech, za, sa. Sadi, and then we're going to get to that. Sadi, what many people say is a tsa sound, like a pizza. But if we know that really, officially, it's not supposed to be a tsa sound. Again, this is according to Sephardim, the real, it's more of like a stronger S. This is hard to know all the way already. And now it's like a sa, like more lower, like samech and sa. It's hard to even hear the difference. And most people don't. I myself vary if I do it or not. I sometimes just say as a sa. The Persians seem to just say like a sa. Now, if you say as a tsa, like Ashkenazim officially, I'm not saying it's wrong. I've heard that even Rabbi Ben Sion, Rabbi Shol said that it's okay. That's the Masorah. So you're not necessarily what do you call it? But okay. Then we have a resh. This is my biggest question. Why is resh among the teeth? Resh is like your tongue. I don't see the teeth involved in that. So I don't know, unless that means that we lost the original way of how to say resh, which could be some of them we lost. But officially, resh is under the teeth. So it could be, I don't know. Officially resh, yeah. And then shin and sin. Shin and sin is also from the teeth. Okay? The last one is the tongue. There are 5 on the tongue. So there's 5 from the teeth and 5 from the tongue. What are the from the tongue? Daled or daled dagesh. Tet. Again, tet is usually said like a tav, but officially tet and tav are different. They say tet is supposed to be a little stronger and maybe more from the teeth or above the teeth. Tet. It's not an easy one to do, and that's also some things I don't always myself think, but officially if you want to know, it's a little more stronger. I know that Harav Netaneli Shlita, he does it tet a little differently than everyone. He does almost like a cha sound, not completely, but it's almost sounds like he's doing a cha. Okay, just pointing that out. Then you have the lamed, nun and tav, or tha, which we'll see it's officially ta with aret dagesh, that the Ashken say is sa, like Toras emes. So officially, for Sephardim, I'm talking about the original, what we hold that is supposed to be tha. So Torath emeth, like the person has a lisp, he can't say sa, he says a tha. That's officially what we hold a tav with aret dagesh is aret dot does. Tav and thav. Again, I don't do it because it's a little hard and weird, but that's officially what we say. Velo thathuru, or velo thathuru. Anyways, these are the five categories. So again, the throat, the palate, the lips, the teeth, and the tongue forms the 5 things. And you should just know everything has a reason. There's a reason why that's 5, because the mouth is the malchut in Kabbalah, which is the hey, the last hey of Hashem's name, and that hey is 5. So that's part of it. And you should, if you want, you could just think every time you daven, especially we say like Ashresh has all the letters. One of the whole points of David HaMelech, why would David HaMelech make a mizrah has all the letters? That means everyone is to say to Hashem, I'm praising you with every possible way of praising, every single possible way of producing a sound. So you can think of it that way. We want to, okay. So again, this is just the beginning. I think it's a good start. Hopefully next week, as Hashem, we continue, and maybe we'll get more to practical. And B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll be zocheh to pray properly, both pronouncing and with kavana. And Hashem shall accept all our tefillot b'rachamim ratzon. Amen. Ki ratzon chodesh tov v'rach. All the best. Kol tuv.